Now, let me just briefly show you the ceviche. In Mexico, we have several different preparations of raw seafood, especially near the coasts, of course. I think that the most famous country for ceviche is Peru. They've really been able to publicize their gastronomy. But in Mexico, we eat lots of ceviche. Now, before we didn't have limes, so we use different sorts of sour fruits, but today we use limes. Now the ceviche that we have today, we also make it with shrimp, with lobster, and we have a mixture of various ingredients. I don't know if you can see them on the screen, but we have lime juice with olive oil. I like to press the I like to press the lime with my hands, not with any sort of machine, because often that makes it bitter. So I just squeeze out some lime juice with my hands, and then a bit of olive oil. That's a sort of a brine. Then we have a mixture of corns. We have white corn, which is a bit bigger and a bit milder in flavor. Then we have yellow corn. This is more in northern Mexico than in southern Mexico. In general, we used white tender corn. Now this corn is rather tender, so I'm not going to cook it. I'm going to use it raw. And then we have other things in ceviche, coriander. That's very common, and it's very aromatic. We have red onions, a bit of radishes, a bit of zucchini, or serrano chili, cut in very thin slices, and then we have a cream. We have what we call jasante, the hoja santa. It's an herb that's typical of Mexico and Veracruz, in particular, also in Oaxaca. It's very aromatic. It's about this big, and when you rub it with your fingers, you get a very sort of anise, very sort of odor. And we use it for making tamales, for instance. Now, with this leaf, we make a kind of cream, and that's really the basis for ceviche. Another thing we do in the restaurant is sort of these onions, which red onions with a bit of oregano and vinegar, and with that we make a puree. Then we sift it, and then we use a kind of seaweed, and that we end up with a sort of gelatin, but that gelatin has a rather sour flavor, and it's very fresh tasting as well. It's a kind of agar. Now, what we do with ceviche, let's begin with the scallops. In general, the scallops are in Mexico. You just have the central part of the scallop. You don't have the red part as you do in Europe. Now, can you see it? These are shrimp, which can be cooked or raw. In Mexico, we have we eat seafood ever more raw. Before we were more cautious, and we tended to cook them, but that's less the case today. Now, I like to marinate this with a bit of lime. 5 minutes or 10 at the very most. I don't really want to change its texture very much or its consistency, especially because this is a very nice scallop. A little bit of salt. And then I'm going to add these coriander leaves. I'm going to let it marinate don't leave this out. You put this in the refrigerator or someplace where it will keep cool. And then we have the hoja santa. I brought this from Mexico. It's a little bit wilted, but this is basically what it looks like. At times it can be a lot bigger, and when you rub it or when you strike it, it gives it you have an odor that is like anise. So we're going to start adding the different ingredients to the ceviche. We have the white corn, a bit of yellow corn, raw, as I said. We're going to add a bit of cucumber, very little. A bit more coriander. Some slices of red onions, or a bit of jalapeno chilies, salt, and a bit of this vinaigrette that we made, just enough to cover, and then a bit of green apple too. Now, we also sometimes add pistachios, but we couldn't bring any pistachios along. But it's very good with pistachio nuts, or any sort of nut. In fact, almonds go very well too. They have a different texture, and they also give it a special flavor. The green apple, what it provides, besides its texture, is a different flavor. And then we stir this up. A bit more vinaigrette. And it's all ready. Here's my dish. We're going to first of all put a bit of this hoja santa cream on the plate. And that gives a creaminess. And that will help us sort of bring the ingredients together. And the anise flavor really goes very well with the freshness of the corn and the in this case, the scallop. Now, general ceviches in Mexico are street food. You eat them in a tostada, which means a fried tortilla, and then you put the ceviche on top. Or you can eat it in these plastic cups mixed with chili, fresh chili, or a certain sauce, sauces that are known as Valentino or Buffalo that the Mexicans really adore. Now, then we put the scallop in. That's enough. I always like to conclude with a bit more lime, or lime juice. And a bit more salt at the end. Here we have the radish. We have some sprouts, radish sprouts, or and here we have a serrano chili sliced. The slice is very, very thin. If you don't like the chili, you can always remove it. But it's really like a very thin piece of paper, and it really adds flavor to it. It's not particularly hot. Basically, one slice per mouthful. Remember what I said about this agar gelatin? In restaurants, people don't necessarily know what it is, and when they taste it, with its acidity, they're really surprised. I mean, that's the Mexicans know this, but not necessarily in that shape. And then avocados, which are traditional. Here we have pieces of avocado.
Y terminaría con un poquito más de aceite de olivo, que es lo que está en la parte de arriba.
And with a bit more olive oil.
Y bueno, para acompañar esto, a lo mejor.
And then a bit of this tostada, I put it on the side. And that's our starter. Any questions?